A man's life is a story. Some stories are whispered in quiet rooms. Others are shouted from street corners. Their echoes last for decades. The story of Milton Butch Jones is one of those echoes. He was a leader. He was a businessman. He was a criminal. He stood at the head of a notorious Detroit drug gang, Young Boys Incorporated, YBI, for a time in the late 1970s and through much of the 1980s. His name was tied to the city's fortunes, both good and bad. His story is about a city and an era that shaped him, and a man who, in turn, shaped that city, brutally. To understand the man, you must first understand the city. The Detroit that shaped young Milton Jones was a place of deep divides. It was the Motor City, a powerhouse of American industry. But the engines were beginning to stall. By the time Jones was coming of age, the promise of prosperity was fading for many, especially in the city's black neighborhoods. Jobs were leaving, taking with them the stability of generations. Abandoned factories, shuttered storefronts, a growing sense of hopelessness. This was the world that greeted Butch Jones every morning. Poverty was not just a lack of money, it was a constant presence, a weight on the spirit. It dictated where you lived, what you ate, what you could dream of becoming. For a young man like Jones, legitimate paths seemed narrow and distant. The world of crime was right there on the corner. Immediate, dangerous, alluring. In his autobiography, Jones said grinding poverty and lack of options pushed him toward selling drugs. It was a choice born from very few good choices. The streets became a classroom. You learned the codes of survival, the language of power, the economics of the underground. Drugs were a commodity. Jones was a quick study. He saw not just the transactions, but the system behind them, and the potential for something bigger, more organized, far more powerful. Out of the decay and desperation of late 1970s Detroit, something new and terrible began to grow. It started small, a group of young men looking to carve out a piece of the city's lucrative heroin trade for themselves. They called themselves Young Boys Incorporated. The name itself was a declaration. They were young, they were organized, they meant business. YBI was not just another street gang. From the very beginning, it was conceived as a corporation. Butch Jones, Raymond Peoples. They were pioneers of a dark industry whose innovations would change the drug game forever. The structure of YBI was its genius and its terror. It operated like a modern franchise business. Leadership, including Jones, supplied heroin to crews of young sellers, many of them teenagers, assigned to specific corners and territories. They were given a product, often with a catchy brand name: Rolls-Royce, Murder One, Show Police Evidence Photo. Crews met sales quotas, turning over set amounts each day. Anything beyond that was theirs to keep. It motivated sellers and clarified the chain of command. The reach of YBI grew with astonishing speed. By around 1978, they came to dominate Detroit's heroin market. Some estimates say as much as 80% at their peak. Their model exported. Franchises popped up in other cities. This was the start of a multi-state drug cartel, run with rare business sophistication. But the empire was fortified with extreme public brutality. Violence enforced discipline and eliminated competition, creating a zone of fear. Butch Jones, the most militant founder, made that reputation central to YBI's power. A nickname can tell you a lot about a man, or at least about how the world sees him. For Milton Butch Jones, the moniker that stuck was the Henry Ford of heroin. It's a chilling comparison, linking one of Detroit's great industrialists with its most infamous drug lord. Henry Ford revolutionized the automobile industry with the assembly line, making cars accessible through efficient, standardized production. In his own dark way, Butch Jones applied similar principles to heroin distribution. He systematized it, he branded it, he made it more widely available than ever. A clear hierarchy allowed immense growth and insulated leaders like Jones from day-to-day street risks. He acted like a CEO, managing a vast network of people and logistics at a distance. Packaging with memorable names created a sense of quality and reliability. A marketing tactic, plain and simple. It turned a dangerous narcotic into a consumer good with brand recognition, cynical, deadly, and effective. It solidified market share, making their product the go-to choice for thousands across the city and beyond. Jones was reportedly proud of this reputation. To him, it signaled success, intelligence, impact. He saw a broken system and built a powerful, profitable machine within it. The nickname, Henry Ford of heroin, captures the fusion of American ingenuity with a trade that brought untold misery. A legacy of efficiency in the service of destruction. In the world of crime, the line between man and myth often blurs. Stories get told, details get exaggerated. A real person becomes a larger-than-life figure. This happened with Butch Jones, painted as an untouchable gangster, a phantom controlling the city from the shadows. One of the most chilling stories comes from Jones himself. In his autobiography, he wrote about his first murder. He said he was hired to kill a man and emptied an entire clip into the victim's back. The account is cold, detached, without remorse. This is not a myth, it's a confession. A direct look into the violence that defined his path strips away any romantic notion of gangster life and exposes its brutal core. Another myth, Jones is lone mastermind. That simplifies a much larger problem. Jones was a key leader, a ruthless strategist, but YBI was a large organization with many important figures. The gang did not create the conditions that let it thrive. They exploited deep poverty, systemic racism, lack of opportunity, widespread addiction. Blaming one man ignores societal failures that created fertile ground for YBI. Jones was a symptom of the disease, not its cause. Records tell of indictments, conspiracies, and violence rooted in turf disputes and betrayals. In September 1982, it was alleged Jones ordered the execution of Dwayne "Wonderful" Wayne Davis over a turf war. Driven by business and paranoia, revealing constant internal danger. No empire, no matter how powerful, is beyond the reach of the law. For Butch Jones and YBI, the end began in the early 1980s. Law enforcement had been building a case. They saw YBI's devastating impact and aimed to dismantle it from the top down. The first major blow came on December 7, 1982. Coordinated raids swept the city. They indicted Butch Jones, Raymond Peoples, and 41 top lieutenants. The charges were extensive: drug trafficking, conspiracy. Not just an arrest, a decapitation strike against leadership. Years of undercover work, surveillance, and informant testimony led to an indictment that crippled YBI's command structure and ended their era of impunity. Convictions sent key players to long prison terms. Butch Jones would face more battles with the justice system. After his initial sentence, he was released, but his life in crime was not over. Violence and drugs continued to follow him. In 2008, at 53, he was back in federal court, pleaded guilty to drug charges linked to 2 murders. 30 years. For a man in his 50s, effectively a life sentence. The long arm of the law had finally caught up. The end of a violent life is often a quiet one. For Milton Butch Jones, his final days were far removed from the chaos and power he once wielded. After many years of a 30-year sentence, the aging inmate was released to a halfway house in late 2025. He returned to a city changed in countless ways. On January 8, 2026, about 2 months after his release, Butch Jones died, a 70-year-old man, a fatal heart attack. The Henry Ford of heroin passed away quietly. The news marked the definitive end of the YBI saga. The man who caused so much noise left the world in silence. His legacy is complicated and painful. Drugs and violence tore through communities, families destroyed, neighborhoods living in fear. For many, the memory of Butch Jones is one of pain and loss. His story is a cautionary tale and a case study, intertwined with urban decay, racial inequality, institutional failure, prompting hard questions about why such paths are chosen and how to build better alternatives.